What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Fall Obsession podcast episode. I am Sam Thrash, your host over here. Thanks for tuning in. We've been gone a couple weeks. Hunting season's here, been busy, and took a short break from the show, but we are back at it, hot and heavy. And this week, my guest is Eddie Boyer. He is a hunter, conservationist from up in Washington State. He is an adult onset hunter in that he started his hunting journey later in life, and he is very, very passionate about his love for everything outdoors and advocating for all of the things that are important to us in the conservation space. So you guys know me, you know that I've made a big conservation push on the show here recently, and I couldn't wait to have Eddie on to talk about some of the issues, not just nationally that we're seeing right now and dealing with, but also some specifics that he's dealing with up there in Washington State. That's a state that we haven't put a lot of focus on. Hadn't really had an opportunity to on the show, so I was looking forward to doing that with him, and also just talking about some hunting, some outdoors, and a little bit about his journey as well. This podcast is great. We're probably going to have to do a part 2 with Eddie because it was a good time, and I feel like there's still a lot of stuff that we could have talked about that we didn't have the time to touch. So hopefully after hunting season we can get him back on here and do a part 2 episode with him. So if you're interested in following him on social media, his handle is Rags2Ridges on social media, and his name will pop up there, Eddie, and just give him a follow and check out everything that he's got going on. Hope you enjoy the show. Before we get going, we'll take care of the little bit of housekeeping. First and foremost, this podcast is driven by our friends over at Hoot Camo. There will be an ad and a promo code later in the episode for you guys to check out. Don't miss out on that. And we are changing things a little bit on our podcast schedule for hunting season. If you guys have followed the show or listened for a while, you know that we try to put out a new episode every single Monday, every single week. We are switching that during the fall 2025 hunting season to every other week. So from now until sometime in January, we'll probably ramp it back up. We will only have an episode coming out every other week. So you guys, make sure that you still stay tuned. We're still going to be bringing you some great stuff, but we're trying to give our team, and myself included, some time with family, some time in the woods, and take a little bit off the plate on the podcast schedule. So we'll be hitting it hot and heavy every week again in January. Wherever you are listening to this podcast, and especially if it is your first time tuning into the show, make sure that you hit that follow, subscribe button, whatever they have up there for you guys. Turn those notifications on if that's an option. That way you know every time we drop a new podcast episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We do far more than just podcasts. We do hunting shows, films, gear reviews, educational content, all sorts of stuff like that. But if you like watching the podcast videos, they hit the YouTube channel normally within a week following the episode release in all the major podcast apps. FallObsession.com is the website. That's where you guys can go to find all of our different avenues of content. Everything filters through there, as well as you can pick up a hat or a shirt, some apparel if you want to support the brand. We do have a couple different hunting and wildlife conservation t-shirt designs on the website right now, and we are donating all the profits from those shirt designs to organizations like Howl for Wildlife or BHA to support conservation efforts going forward. So get involved, go pick you up a cool shirt, and like I said, support those organizations. Social media, all the major platforms, we are active on there. If you guys are as well, make sure that you give us a follow. And last but not least, if you guys have not heard of Carbon TV, you need to go check it out. Carbon TV is a free hunting and outdoor streaming platform where you can stream on demand hundreds of different hunting shows, podcasts, films from different genres in the hunting and outdoor industry, fishing, angling, just outdoor lifestyle, all sorts of stuff like that. Carbon TV has everything. Fall Obsession produces 4 different shows on Carbon TV. This podcast, our staff-inspired video podcast series called Couch Chats, is on Carbon TV, as well as our 2 different hunting shows titled Texas Dirt and Midwest Mindset. Guys, go check out Carbon TV and start streaming today. I'm done rambling. We're going to get Eddie in here, get the episode going. Hope you guys enjoy. You are listening to another Fall Obsession podcast.
The power lies within that middle ground.
Hunting transformed my life.
I think you have to be built somewhat different.
That Dale Brisby's a super puncher.
It's when you get Pop-Tarts on the next Walmart order. I'm serious.
Because to come into this country and stay dedicated to that, it was pretty awesome.
If it's only for one then you've done your job.
We have to do what's right for the wildlife, and that's our responsibility as hunters.
Fall Obsession Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to another Fall Obsession Podcast episode. I'm Sam, hosting you guys, and this week my guest is Eddie Boyer. You guys may know him on Instagram. Rags to Riches is the handle. Welcome to Fall Obsession Podcast, man.
Hey, man, appreciate you having me on. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one, man. I've been following your social media for a while, and we were talking before we started recording a little bit about just the conservation push I've kind of made on this show and everything. And at some point in the past year, your page has popped up, and I'm like, I like what this guy has to say. He's got some good opinions about a lot of this stuff. So, and he's not afraid to share them. I like it.
Right. Yeah. Well, no, I appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people, have a lot of views on certain things, and sometimes they're, afraid to speak their mind or speak up on certain matters. And I have absolutely no problem speaking my mind and saying what I think and believe. And some people like it, some people don't, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, my goal is conservation and doing what's best in what I believe is best for wildlife management, for hunters and anglers, and all outdoorsmen and women. So I hope anybody listening or watching understands that, I might be a little rough around the edges on certain things or speak my mind a little bit certain ways, but my heart and my goal is protecting wildlife, protecting our way of life. Hunting is a huge part of my life. I have a almost 3-year-old daughter, and making sure that she has the same or more opportunities for the outdoors that I have is my goal. And I want her to, I don't want her to be 35 years old and have far less opportunities than I have. I want her to have way more opportunities if that's the route she goes down. So that's my goal, man. And I have had a lot of people, give me, have some negative things to say, which I don't really, pay a whole lot of attention to. But my heart is in the right place, I like to think. So
yeah, no, I agree with you, man. And those disagreements and everything, that's needed for, I feel like, conversations to be constructive and opinions to be shared and everything, because we're not going to agree with everyone out there, and they're not going to agree with us. But at the same time, we have to be able to articulate that in a way that is respectful, and we don't want to come across as jerks that are just my way or the highway, pitchfork in hand, ready to burn the place to the ground type deal. Like we have to be able to be an ambassador for hunting, not just with the words that we're saying and the opinions that we're standing by, but also in the way that we articulate it, because there's people who are influenceable who don't know one way or the other, that are watching how we carry ourselves, and that plays a factor in their opinions beginning to form as well. So
right.
Yeah, it's
and like that's like yesterday I was at the Washington Wildlife Commission meeting. And, there's a bunch of issues going on here in Washington, tons of issues. But there's a anti-hunting organization that, gets involved in a lot of stuff there. And they were there yesterday. And, they do have valid points for some of the things that they have to say. It's not just, it's one of those things where, like you had said, we got to be open to conversations with people with opposing views, or else we're just never really going to get anywhere. And I see so many people that just get so, hell bent on, it's this way or the highway. And it's like, it's really not that simple anymore. The world is changing. Things are getting, a lot more people are getting into the outdoors, and there's different views and everything like that. So we have to be mindful of that, and we have to take other opinions into consideration and understand that, the things that worked 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, they might not be working the same way they are now. the wolves are a big deal. I know a lot of guys have the viewpoint of, um, smoke a pack a day and this, that, and the other and stuff like that. And it's just not realistic. That's not a realistic way to approach this. And you're going to lose any support if that's your mindset. You're going to have the support of a few local buddies or something that you're at the bar with, but you're not going to have real support if that's your mindset and your only focus on it. You got to be a little more open to the conversation, especially in Washington. The Wolves are here. They have been here. WDFW has done a terrible job, and they have hidden the numbers and they've lied about it. And, for the longest time, up until just a few years ago, they were trying to deny the presence of wolves on the west side of the state.
Mm.
We've all known they're here. It's no secret.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing is, they need to be transparent as well in order to make real change and to really, make a difference here. So, the mindset of, uh, my way or the highway just doesn't work anymore. And we're getting to the day and age where, we got to work with people that we don't agree with. And that's just the way it is now.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's how it goes. So speaking more, because you're from Washington, as you said, speaking more in regards to that, and I'm just kind of diving right in here. I still want to get to know you and hear your story as well.
Right.
But since you brought it up, I want to ask you, you talked about just the example of them denying that there are wolves on the west side of the state, just altogether. What are the influencing factors in your state for your wildlife commission or the department being like that? And just educate me, because I'm not as familiar with Washington as I am with other states.
Right. So I really think that, and I don't know how much you want to get into like the political kind of side of things on it, but Washington State is known as a very liberal state. It's no secret.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very liberal type state. Um, but that's the thing is it's not King County, where Seattle is and all these big cities, they kind of control the narrative for the whole state. But once you cross the Cascades, I mean, the entire eastern side of the state is very, conservative
Mm-hmm.
Republican views over there. And a lot of even like where I'm at, in Enumclaw, it's a very, conservative area and stuff like that. So it's the liberal, it's a lot of liberal things that control WDFW. It's a lot of anti-hunting organizations that are funded by, big, huge billionaires. Like the owner of the Seahawks, she funds a anti-hunting organization called Washington Wildlife First. So they have big money, they have big influence, and that's kind of what helps control, the votes. And there's been a lot of scandals going on with WDFW. Some of that stuff I can't really get into
Yeah.
too much of it, but there's been with the commissioners that are in there right now. There's potential felony activities going on.
Wow.
There's a lot of real shady things going on behind the scenes that I would love to hopefully soon be able to bring more light to, but at the moment, that's kind of about as far as we can go. There's some big organizations that are on the side of hunters that are helping out and working towards that, but working towards changing it and helping us get some of those people out of there. But I think a big problem with Washington is it's kind of like a lost hope almost. That's kind of what it feels like, especially from a lot of the other western states. It's kind of like Washington is like, we don't really care what they're doing up there, leave them to what they're doing. And it's like, hey, like it'd be nice to have a lot more eyes on what is actually going on here in this state, um, to have bigger voices and bigger platforms kind of helping out, because there is a lot of there's a lot of good outdoorsmen here. There's a lot of hunters here. There's a lot of people that aren't aren't in support of what's going on in the state
Right.
as far as wildlife and conservation, but we don't have the platform, and we don't have the big backing from other people that seem to really care about our state enough. It's kind of like, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, those western states get, all the view and all the love and shout out. Well, Washington has a great potential, for hunting and outdoors and everything like that, but it just kind of it doesn't get the spotlight that a lot of other states get, and I think that kind of hurts us.
Yeah, it gets drowned out with some of the other drama. It sounds like a little bit, but
Right,
yeah, it's man, that's tough for sure, and especially when you have that big money on the other side that's playing a factor. I remember talking about that last year with Dan Gates in Colorado, with the CRWM back when they were fighting the Proposition 127 and the mountain lion thing down
Right.
there and everything, and he made that comment on the show. He was talking about how how much work it has been for an organization like that, or any of the other ones that were involved, to raise the kind of money they needed to match the campaigns of the opposition, of the anti-hunting world, because they have all of these big donors and all of these financial means at their disposal, and so it's nothing for them to throw money at it. And on top of that, it's a whole lot easier for them to just prey on the emotions of the uneducated or uninformed person, whereas it's like the hunting side, the pro hunting side, the pro, science-based wildlife management side has to not only have the funding, but then we have to be educational in the message, whereas the other side can just, like I said, prey on emotions. So it's crazy, the contrast, and how much work. And I'm making it sound bad. I'm not selling it, but it's so
No,
much
I
work
get
on
you.
the other side, on the hunting side and everything. It's crazy, man. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah, and it is. And like, I'm thankful that, with the big public land sale going on in Utah, all that stuff going on, the Not One Acre campaign, all of that kind of stuff, that got so much. you know that's the thing is, I feel like a lot of people in the hunting industry and that type of stuff, like, if it doesn't affect their state, they aren't really willing to raise a stink about it.
Hey guys, sorry to cut y'all off from the conversation. We'll get back to it in just a second, but first I want to tell you guys about Hoot Camo. Hoot Camo is one of the best camouflage brands out there for the blue collar hunter. The prices, you can't beat them. The patterns are extremely versatile. They work in so many different environments. I have worn Hoot Camo hunting whitetails, hogs, and turkeys down here in the hardwoods, the mesquites, the scrub brush of Texas. I've worn it in the flatland plains of eastern Colorado hunting mule deer. I've even worn it in the mountains of central Idaho hunting elk. It works in so many different places. It is extremely high quality gear, extremely warm, holds up well against the elements. You cannot beat it. Go to hootcamo.com, use the code FallObsession15 on your next order, no matter how big or small it is, and check out everything that Hoot Camo has on there for you guys.
And that big public land sale, that was going to affect a lot of states, so it brought a lot of attention. The Colorado one was another one where that ended up getting so big that a lot of other states and a lot of other people got involved and were able to, help out. But I feel like, and I hate to bring it back to Washington, but I feel like we don't ever get the help that we need. And it's like, hey man, we need help. We need these big voices. We need these people to help take a look at what's going on here and see what they can do. See if they can, whatever it is that they can do to help. Um, that's kind of where I think Washington is, like we have half the ungulate population as every other state around us. Oregon, Idaho, Montana, we have roughly half the population. I understand that Washington has a bigger um, population of people, right? Seattle, I think it's like 8 million people, right? It's the biggest city on this side over here, right? By
Right.
far. And I'm not ignorant to that. I understand that that plays into it, but there are also other things that are affecting that, and some of it is hush hush, and people don't really want to address what's actually happening and going on, and I just wish that Washington would get a little bit more of the love that it deserves, because this is a great state for outdoorsmen. Um, Fishing, especially. I mean, the trout, the salmon, all of that stuff that we have to offer. No other states have that. We have pretty much every deer. We get blacktail, mule deer, whitetail. We got both species of elk. So we have a lot of things that a lot of other Western states don't have to offer. We have moose. We have a lot of things that a lot of other states don't seem to have to offer, but we have a smaller population of those animals, and our hunting regulations and stuff like that, they don't favor the outdoorsman. And that's the change that we really need is, um, you know, these other states see the value, and they see the value in hunters, and they see the value in their outdoor spaces. And Washington just doesn't do a good job at that. This is not a hunter friendly state. And I understand that, but that's what we need to change, is to bring more attention to that, because this could be a great state for hunters, but it's just not at the moment, and it really sucks. It's pushing me to um, you know, probably sooner than later, pack up and leave, because uh, it's just along with other things. There's other stuff going on in the state that makes me want to move too. But it's like the commission meeting I was at yesterday. It was a pretty good turnout for hunters and stuff like that. But if the hunters in this state, and the anglers, and all of the outdoorsmen, if we would just show up to these meetings, and show a little bit more force, it would start to, change things. And I get that people don't want to, they think that even the residents of the state think it's just too far gone. And I don't think that it is. If you just start showing up, and you just start letting your voice be heard, and standing up for conservation and wildlife in the state, maybe you'd be surprised to see what does happen, what changes, because the more people that show up, the harder it is to start ignoring what's going on.
Yeah. Well, no, it goes back to a sense of accountability, I think, because I mean, you can narrow it down to Washington, as you're saying, and I'm glad you said that, because I was gonna ask you and pose a question on, hey, if Washington needs more love, where's the love need to come from? And I think a piece of that, at least, is any state coming from the people itself, and everything, not just with them going out and hunting and enjoying the outdoor spaces and everything. We all want to do that, but actually having a presence, like you just said, at these meetings, and showing their face, contacting their representatives and the people who are actually at the table making these decisions for them, that gives those people, those decision makers, that sense of accountability. And when you start hearing a bunch of people that are disagreeing with you, I'm speaking from the standpoint of, a decision maker at this point. If you start having the people that are disagreeing with you, you might start reevaluating your perspective and your opinions, at least if you want to stay stay in office or stay in your position, from a standpoint. And so and I feel like just in the digital age, the digital world that we live in, I feel like that is just another product of people becoming more disconnected in that regard and not wanting to have that physical presence, not wanting to actually pick up the phone and make their own phone call to somebody, to encourage them to, to listen to them and listen to their opinion. I think that all that plays a factor, and if people stand up and speak louder, I think it'll have a long-term effect if they can stick with it. You mentioned it. The public land sale thing was a perfect example of that, I think, of people actually speaking up and saying something. So
100% it was. And that was, that was the deciding factor in that. Was the pressure that got put on them and the voices behind it and the people that that was such an awesome thing to be a part of.
Yes.
As small as I was in any of it, right? It felt like such a great win. I remember exactly where I was at when I found out that it got overturned. And everybody that I was with, I mean, we were celebrating. It was an awesome thing to see that, and to see how many people cared enough to, and that's the other thing. It goes down to you buy your tag every year, you get to the trailhead every year, but you can't use your voice for 2 minutes to make a phone call. You can't use your platform to send out So I'm glad to see that there were so many people willing to, keep their foot on the throttle about it and not give up and not feel overwhelmed at making a difference, because everybody's voice, everybody's call, everybody's post on social media, all of that stuff played a huge role in this. And as an outdoorsman and a hunter, that was a very awesome moment that we all were able to unite like that. And it just goes to show that if we did that for every state, if everybody in the outdoor community came to every state's aid when it came to these types of issues, I mean, who can stand against us when that happens? I mean, I think Washington has 200 to 250,000 registered hunters or something like that, so pretty big number. And if 0.5% came to the meetings, look at how many people you have there. Just 0.5% came to these meetings. I mean, there's not enough room for all of us there. So having people unite and really come together and focus on it for not just your state's issue, but as a whole, as a country, for conservation and wildlife, we can make a difference. And I think that public land sale showed that, hey, we do make a difference. And I don't know, what state are you from?
I'm from Texas. I'm from a state that's very, that up till now has not been impacted by a lot of this very much.
Right.
And you're telling me, I love what I'm hearing, just because this is the same message that I've been trying to live by and everything, for the past year, as far as, hey, just because it's not in your home state, just because it's not on your hunting ground or affecting your hunting ground, don't let that stop you from getting involved, because it affects everybody in a roundabout way. I stepped in it a little bit here recently with the whole Ambler Road stuff up in Alaska, because I did a show about that, and I spoke my opinions on it based on the research and everything that I had done. And then, like we do with all of our podcasts, we post some clips and some reels and stuff from each episode on social media, and one of them on TikTok started getting lit up by some Alaskan residents who were all speaking out in favor of Ambler Road and talking about from their perspectives. And I get this is a very small in the grand scheme of things, right? It's a very small group of people, but the consistency's in this random group of people where, it would it's not gonna be like this huge 6-lane highway running through the mountains. The caribou are still going to be able to migrate, and they are looking at it from the standpoint of, well, it's going to allow us to have better access. Like after it's completed, we're going to be able to drive this road and get around our state easier, and it's going to be jobs and stimulate our economy. They started talking about all these things, and I was like, okay. I still have my own opinions about it. Not that they have or have not been swayed entirely, but now I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, okay, so now there's a local component, and I think that's regardless of what the issue is. That local component, I think, is the biggest thing that needs to be considered when there's something happening in Alaska or Washington or whatever it might be. Because I can be down here in Texas and I can be, have my torch lit and I'm ready to burn it to the ground because this isn't right. Well, hold on. Have actually talked to Eddie up in Washington to see exactly what this is going to, what the impact is going to be, good or bad, for whatever the issue might be. I think there has to be that local component in there, both for the hunter and conservationist that's advocating for it, and for the bigwigs in politics that are trying to make decisions and make stuff happen, good or bad. So I don't know. I got a little bit of schooling, not necessarily in that my opinion was wrong or invalid. I didn't necessarily feel that way. I just felt like I felt like I didn't seek out enough of a local Alaskan component really before I went public on a podcast to talk about something like that. So.
Right. And, with that, though, I think that, okay, so with the Ambler Road thing, yeah, that might help some population of Alaskans, right? And that's your state, that's your issues. I understand that. But with that, with allowing something like that to happen, that sets a precedence to every other state now, where, hey, it might not benefit us. If that happens up there, then something similar might come down and happen in Washington, where we don't need that. We don't need the help. We don't want that. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem with that. So I think that's where, yeah, it might help some people up there, but in the grand scheme of things, is it going to help hunters and anglers and outdoorsmen in the country?
Hey folks, if you guys are in the North Texas area like I am, then you need to go to Bear River Archery and Pro Shop in Van Alstyne, Texas. Justin and the guys up there have an incredible operation set up. They will take great care of you and all of your archery needs. They are the official bow shop in North Texas of Fall Obsession. I love going there, and I'm picky. If you guys know me, I am very selective on who I let work on my bow. I will let Justin work on my bow. They do great stuff. Check out Bear River Archery and let them know that Fall Obsession sent you.
Because that opening up there, I get where those guys are coming from of it, helping out and stuff. I totally do, because, I've caught in a little flack too about, some people saying, for jobs for, mining and, loggers and stuff like that. It's like, okay, well, hold on now. I've done tree work for a lot of my life, so I understand that side of it too. And I understand that, cutting into forests and doing all these different things like that. I understand the job, the money that it creates for that area in the community, and being someone who has worked in, logging industry, I understand that, yeah, that might benefit my pocket now, but in the long run, what does it really do for my way of life? Mm-hmm. And I just don't think that it benefits the long-term, aspect of it all. Yeah, it might be good for you guys short-term, but it's a sticky situation. And, I could see where people from Alaska would have different opinions on it. I
It,
definitely get that. And
it,
I'm not saying that they're not valid, but
yeah, and I'm not
it's a
either.
tough one.
I typically I do not shy away in the comment section on social media from engaging with people who are at least capable of having a decent discussion, I guess I should say, because then you have truly hateful people out there that is just they're a pain in the butt to deal with. But people that you feel
Right.
like you can have a decent dialogue with, I don't shy away from those discussions on social media by any means. And in this, speaking in relevance to the Rambler Road project, they definitely have their opinions. I have mine. There were definitely a few in there that kind of took the approach of, you stay in your saddle down there on your horse in Texas and stay out of my business
Right.
in Alaska,
Yeah,
right? And it's like, okay,
absolutely.
I get that. Like, flip the script. I would probably also have reservations about some random guy from Alaska telling me how to do something in Texas. I get that.
For sure.
But at the same time, it goes back to one, we were talking about hunters and conservationists across the country need to be engaged and be able to be vocal for these sort of things. And then the conversation undoubtedly for a lot of these individuals, I turned it into, okay, well, how much, I even did a video in and of itself, how much feedback did you have the opportunity to give prior to Ambler Road? And there were a couple people who said that back in the Biden administration, when they tried to do this the first time, that there were a few like town hall setting meetings and everything, but nobody could attribute anything to anything recent, at least. Nobody that was being discussing with me right then and there. And then on top of that, you also have Congress using the CRA to repeal the BLM resource management plans in Alaska, Montana, and I think it's North Dakota, I want to say.
Yep.
So pose that question too. What's your opinion on this? Because this just seemed like a fail swoop. Like, hey, this is what we're doing. BLM resource management plans, we're nullifying those. Nobody had an answer for that, and that just goes. I believe that goes back to your point that you made on what are we giving up? What are we sacrificing, and what kind of
Right.
precedent is it setting? Because especially with the CRA, that whole deal, man, I was like, oh my gosh, if they can just do that in a fail swoop to those three states, they're not afraid to do that anywhere, man, and that's scary. It should be scary for any hunter.
Absolutely. That's
So,
it absolutely should be. And like especially I don't have a whole lot of experience in other states. I've been to Idaho, Montana, here and there and stuff. But as far as speaking on, Washington, our wilderness areas here, I mean, are pristine. We have some of the best wilderness areas. I would put some of ours against any in the country. We got like one, for instance, the Alpine Lakes Wilderness. I mean, it is, it's the most beautiful area, and it's untouched. It's obviously it's wilderness area, right? And so it just makes me nervous when people start putting their little needs ahead of the bigger things that could come from it, because I could not imagine them wanting to just put a road or start allowing things like that in, for instance, the Alpine Lakes Wilderness. Like, I mean,
right.
that is it's just it blows my mind. And um it's scary, man. It's scary that the government and certain people are so willing to take that from people, take that from us, and it they want to dangle a little bit of money in our pockets as, workers who would benefit from that, but the loss that it would create is just monumental. And
I agree.
their pockets are getting way bigger, and they're getting a lot of money out of it. And yeah, okay, you're throwing a couple bucks to the residents here and there. Oh, good. But it's just, it's not worth it. Um, I don't think that the little benefits that those people get outweigh the bigger picture. I just don't see it being, I don't see it being a good idea to start messing around with that kind of stuff. I really don't. And I'm not, I'm not uh, the most informed on all of this stuff, and I'm still learning and I'm still progressing. And um, a lot of this stuff I don't have the best opinion on, but I'm trying to get there, and I'm working my way up to, uh, be a little bit more informed on all of this stuff going on. But I really don't see it being. I don't see it. Sorry to keep rambling on it, but
Oh,
I
you're
just
good.
don't see it being. I don't see it being good for the long term outdoorsman. I just don't, and that's a tough one because again, I'm not familiar with Alaska natives and or Alaska residents and what they are seeing in this, as much as you're not from Texas. You don't, you have a couple opinions from some people up there, but are they are those people taking into consideration what this is going to do to Washington or Idaho or Montana later on if it goes through, like so yeah, it's a tough one.
It is, man. And this whole the whole conservation dance, I feel like just it never stops. And that's the borderline exhaustive part. And I imagine you've felt this in some degree. It's like we can get a win even, or what we consider one, right? Proposition 127 in Colorado, the public land sale. We can have this stuff happen where it's like, oh man, something good actually happened out of this. We actually our voices were heard, and all the hard work paid off. And we're high fiving and we're all excited. But man, the next one's right around the corner, and it's
Exactly.
never gonna stop. And man, I'll tell you, I've just over the past year and a half, sometimes it's been exhausting for me just trying to one keep up with it, and then two, it's like, man, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse with telling people, whether it's in my personal life, friends, or talking publicly on the show or whatever it is. Like I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, keep bringing this stuff up, but that's just the
Yep.
reality of it, man. That's just how it keeps coming back around, and it's never gonna stop. It will never stop, and it's gonna be a continuous fight. So
Yep. And I'm with you on that because, to touch a little bit on, like my personal life and
yeah,
background and stuff. Um, I don't come from like a hunting family, right? I'm basically the first hunter out of my family. I got like a couple uncles and stuff that hunt. My uncle Andy in Minnesota, a couple people like that, but like I didn't come from that background, Not that I came from like an anti-hunting background. I just came from, we camped and fished a little bit and rode dirt bikes, stuff like that. But I'm basically the first real hunter.
hmm,
And my friends, I got a couple buddies that hunt, but a lot of my friends aren't really um, engaged in all of this, right? So I know they're tired of hearing about it from me because it seems like, and it seems like every day I get on social media or, I talk to some of my sources and talk to some people, and it's like, it's like, when am I going to get on social media or when am I going to get talk to one of my sources or talk to some of these people that are in the know and get something positive, right? It seems like it's always an attack on our way of life. It's always an attack on public lands, wildlife, all of this. And it's like it is absolutely exhausting.
hmm,
It drives me crazy that I'm constantly talking about attacks and negative things, and I don't. It sucks. I would love to get online and start posting daily about the wins that we're getting and all of this good stuff that's happening, but it's not the reality. It's a constant battle that we are in, and it feels like there's just no end in sight. It's
yeah.
like
Well,
this is just the way it is.
well, I mean, to some extent, like I mean, the way our world is, there might not ever be an end. But I've
Right.
I've posed this question to people before, just as far as uh, I forget who I asked it to the first time, but I was like, do you think that all of everything going on for a new hunter is overwhelming? And I think that you have to acclimate to it to a certain extent, but I think what ultimately draws a new hunter in is ultimately what helps reconnect us with the reason and the push for us to continue doing it and to continue at the advocacy and everything is the love for the outdoors and for hunting and everything like that. And that's, I know for me that's one of the big things is I can't lose sight of that, and I can't allow myself to become disconnected from the things that I'm fighting for. I have to make it a priority to still spend time in the woods and to still hunt and to still do all of these things that I'm continuing to fight for myself and future generations to be able to do. And I feel like the same way that I go and find the value in that again, right, and kind of get that fire lit under me again is the same reason why a new hunter in today's day and age with everything going on is going to see the importance of the advocacy side as well. So I don't know. That's my
Right.
my perspective on it. But
Absolutely. And I can speak to that because um, I am a new hunter. You know, I am that. I started hunting 5 or 6 years ago, right around there, 5, 6 years ago. So I am a pretty relatively new hunter. You know, and it is absolutely overwhelming. And it is, yeah, you can, pick up a bow or you can, go get into it for sure. It's pretty easy. It's pretty accessible. I think that there's a good push uh, making it intriguing for people to become new hunters, right? A lot of these influencers and people like that, people, guys can have their opinions on them or say whatever, but I believe that what a lot of these big name people are doing is great for us. I really do. A lot of people don't, um, but I think that it's great because I think it opens the door to new hunters, and I think that it shows them there's it's not just the good old boys club anymore. It's not
right,
just the you know guys hop in the pickup truck and drink beer and drive around and just shoot everything. Like it's not that. There are people that are educated. It's there's a good physical aspect to it. There's a good spiritual aspect to it. So I think that it's great for new hunters, but at the same time, I absolutely can see that um it's overwhelming. It's a little nerve-wracking. You don't want to, as a new hunter, you don't want to um potentially say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, or and a lot of states don't make it easy on new hunters because there are so many regulations. There's so many this and that. Like I talked to a guy down there yesterday at the commission meeting because there's an area that I want to go hunt at, and there's some sticky there's some it's hard to tell if you are able to hunt it, right? And so I called WDFW. They didn't have an answer for me, right?
mm,
So now I have to call other agencies and other places. And that is a lot of work, and it's a lot of confusion and stuff like that. And it kind of makes a guy wonder, okay, well, you're WDFW, right? You're the game wardens, you're the people, you should know. So if you don't know if I can hunt it, how do you expect me to know if I can hunt it?
right.
So I should be able to call you, and you should be able to tell me yes, no, here, there, all of that. And I'm not expecting every person to know that, but you should at least give me the answers or give me the resources to find it. It shouldn't just be all up to me to find if I can go hunt this area.
Yeah, if they
That's
say
your
no,
job.
if they say no, I say, well, sounds like I can. Sounds
Right,
like I'm
exactly.
good.
Exactly. If you say like
Yeah, you say you don't know.
and so for a new hunter, that is very overwhelming, and that's very difficult because you have to do a lot of, there's a lot more work that you have to put into it to find some of these areas. Granted, there are apps and there are, these companies like Onyx and all these different places that make it absolutely great for hunters and accessible. And I'm so fortunate that I started my hunting career with the ability to have those apps where a lot of guys didn't. So they didn't know what land they're on. I never had to go through that. And also a lot of, um, you know, a lot of guys have, there's a lot of, big influencers that help out on social media and YouTube and things like that, that absolutely were a huge help to me.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the show. Hope you guys are enjoying it. There's so many different places that you guys can tune in to Fall Obsession Podcast, and one of them is the Outdoor Call radio app. Outdoors Dan from Respect the Game TV, he created an app that you can download on any device where you can stream hunting shows and podcasts on a loop every single day. Our show, Fall Obsession Podcast, plays on that loop on Mondays. That's the same day as our new publications on the other apps. And there's also tons of other hunting shows and podcasts on there that you guys can listen to. Go download the Outdoor Call radio app today. It is free. You can start streaming immediately. And be sure that you follow their Facebook page, because Outdoors Dan does some live radio shows throughout the week. And even if you are not local to those radio stations, his broadcasts are shared on his Facebook Live. It's Outdoors Dan and the Outdoor Call radio app. Go download it today.
Getting into this because I didn't have somebody teaching me. I didn't have nobody showing me how to shoot a bow, how to do any of this stuff. So I had to decide this is what I want to do. And, these guys online posting their videos and doing all of this stuff were the reason why I am where I'm at right now. And I've been successful hunting. I've harvested animals every year. Granted, I'm not out here shooting, world-class bucks and everything like that, but I'm filling my freezer for my daughter. And a lot of that is my own legwork and my own, getting out there and doing it. But these guys on social media and YouTube and doing all of this stuff have been a huge help for me. So I think that for new hunters, one, yes, it is work to do it. You got to do your own research. You got to put in your own legwork to get out there, and do all that. But utilize these guys online that are helping. Utilize YouTube. Go on there and spend some time watching these people, because they are absolutely helpful. And there's a lot of guys in the industry that will talk to a new hunter online. There's big Aaron Snyder. He's a guy who absolutely helped me. And recently he had me on his podcast for Born Primitive, and that was awesome. And, without guys like that, uh, new hunters or new people are going to, they're going to have a harder time if we don't support those big names that are helping. So those guys catch a lot of flack. Guys like him, Cam Haynes, Dan State, and all these guys that are driving, they're driving this. They catch a lot of flack for it, but they're also extremely helpful to the new guys, and that's what we need. We need guys that are willing to help and get more numbers. Does that mean that there's going to be potentially more guys at your trailhead? Yeah, but depending on what state you're in, there's a lot of public land out here that you can go find a new spot, go here, go there, go explore it. And
yeah.
I think having more hunters, I understand the issues behind that, because you got a lot more people in the woods, but you have a lot more help in the long run. You have a lot more voices. You have a lot more people that are willing to stand up when it comes time to these big public land sales and these big battles that are not going away. So I think that is great. I really do. I'm a big supporter in that. And I think that, I think a lot of those guys get a bad rap, and I it sucks. I hate to see that for them.
Oh yeah. No, I am definitely pro get more people involved. I think we need more people experiencing our public lands. And to your point, that might mean for some trailheads, there's more people starting their journey there. But in the long run, we need that. We need those people who understand and have that love and that passion for it. And I agree with you. The influencers can easily get a bad name. But to add on to that, I'll tell any new hunter that might be looking at somebody. I mean, you mentioned him like Cam Hanes, for example, and stuff, and they're like, oh man, that he's got so much good stuff. I've learned all this, but man, I'll never be able to hunt like that. It's like, don't let a misconception that these folks have just all of this money and these crazy outfitters and all of this great stuff to that you have to have that to be able to go out there and enjoy your experience. Public land, the DIY, over the counter stuff in various areas, man, there are so many options out there for people to take advantage of. And I know that was a misconception I had growing up was, well, I see all these people on the tapes and the DVDs and everything that are just they're shooting elk and stuff, but I'll never be able to go do that. And I'm not saying hunting's not cheap. It definitely is not cheap.
Right.
But
It's not cheap.
you also don't have to shell out thousands upon thousands of dollars with an outfitter to go hunt somewhere out west, for example, right?
Yep.
So I tell anybody, look at your options too, as far as hunting out west, hunting different states, whatever you're interested in. There's cheaper options than probably what you're just led to believe based on perception, right? So
Absolutely.
and I want everybody to have the opportunity to get out there and do it, because I've been blessed to be able to hunt elk in Idaho and pronghorn in Montana, muleys in Colorado, and all of these are opportunities that I didn't really know years ago. I wouldn't have really thought would have been possible for me, and they're very possible.
Right.
So
Yep.
yeah.
And it goes back to like, when I started hunting, again, I had nobody showing me the ropes, nothing, right? My sister bought me archery lessons at the local bow shop down in Puyallup, Washington. Great Northwest Archery. Shout out to them. The guys there are awesome. The dude's name's Sean. If you're on this side of the state and you're looking for an archery shop, I got to send you that way. So, give him he is patient. He will take his time with you. Great guys down there. And I got my lessons there, learned how to shoot a bow, right? Because I'd never even touched one. Got my lessons there. And was it expensive? It can be as expensive as you want it to be.
True.
You can go buy a $200 bow, or I'm not allowed to have guns. I don't know much about, getting a rifle or whatever, right? But I'm assuming that you could probably go buy a hunting rifle for a couple $100, if that's the way you want to go. And so getting your initial stuff is a little expensive, but I bought my bow, a few $100s for my bow, got a little bit of gear. So I think for me to start it was under $1,000 for my first year. That year I shot a deer, my very first time.
Yeah.
Like I hunted every day for early season, right? By myself, just wandering around the woods, probably spooking off more animals than I even knew, but learning and watching and seeing how it goes. And I was able to shoot a deer later on that year, right? And it didn't cost me all this big money to do it. A guy who shoots a giant buck or a bull in another state has no effect on what I'm doing in my state, So these guys catching all this flack for it, you can go hunt your public lands just like I did and shoot a deer. And I did it that year, my very first year. So it is possible. And these guys, what these guys do in their states or what these big name people do, it doesn't affect you. You can go do it, You can go out to your public lands and go shoot. It doesn't matter if this guy shot a bigger one or not. go out there, go experience it, go walk around your public lands and go see what it's all about, because it's very possible. And I'm proof that you can start from absolute scratch and make it happen for you. Um, if I now I'm getting to the point where I have a little bit more experience, so yeah, I'm hopefully shooting a little bit better deer this year, or I'm shooting a bigger buck, or whatever. But you can go fill your freezer.
Yeah.
And if that's what hunting to me is about, is going and filling a freezer. I try to not buy any meat from the store. I try to, live off what I shoot. And it's very possible for anybody to go out and make it happen if you're willing to put in the work.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Do you process your own stuff?
Yep, I do it all myself. My first year, I shot that, I shot that deer, and granted, it was a little tiny button buck, but I shot it and watched videos on how to process it. I went and bought a meat grinder. I did it all myself. Ended up with, quite a bit of burger because I was messing up cuts and different things like that. But, it happens. And now, now I'm pretty confident to where, if I shoot an animal, I'm getting all the cuts that I want out of there, and I'm doing it all myself. And I don't, you know, you can go pay somebody to do it for you if that's what you want to do. And, some guys don't have the time to process it, and there's nothing wrong with that. I do make the time to do it, and I enjoy doing it all myself. So that's what I do. But it's not like you have to. You can pay somebody to go do it. Who cares? You still, got that meat yourself. So I do process my own. Do you process yours?
I have, and from year to year, it kind of changes. I grew up using a processor and everything, and then in not that long ago, a few years ago, I started doing it all myself. Past couple years, just with some other stuff in life, there have been some deer that have gotten dropped off at a processor. There's been some deers that I've cut
Right.
up myself. So I tend to I tend to mix them both in a little bit. And yeah,
Exactly.
I guess you could say if I'm feeling lazy, but
Yep, absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with that. I hear, guys catch a lot of flack for that too. And it's like, hey, you know what? Life happens, man. Okay. People work, you got kids, you got events, you got this, things happen.
yeah,
So, I try to do it all myself. I'm fortunate that I have been able to, but, there's probably going to be a time where I don't do it myself, and oh well,
yeah. It's a learning curve for sure doing it yourself. I remember the first one that I did all on my own. It was, I don't know. I felt like I probably spent a whole day
Right.
working on that deer and
Yep.
everything, and then but it got easier. The next one was just a few hours, and the next one was a couple hours shorter than that. It just you get your system down, you get your rhythm down, you learn the cuts, you learn what you're doing and everything with it, and makes your process a little bit process, and as if you have proper meat care leading into it as well, that makes a world of difference too. So
Right. And I'm the type of person where, like, you know, if I'm able to, I will, like on my last year I shot a cow, right? And I was able to um get a lot of the bones. And so I made bone broth, right? I try to keep as much fat as I can
yeah,
because I use it for cooking, rendering, different things like that. My bear, I didn't take any of the bones, but I took as much fat as I could get off of it, rendered it down. So I try to utilize everything out of the animal that I can. I'm pretty big on that. It's a pretty important thing for me. I try to take everything that I can out of the animal, especially because um, as I grow on social media and there's more eyes on it, and especially with my daughter, I want her to see that you know I didn't just go out and smoke an animal. We harvested an animal that is feeding us now, and it
hmm
gave its life for us to, you know, eat it and use it. And so I want her to grow up seeing that side of it. Um, Does that mean that that's the only way? No. But I try to utilize as much out of the animal as I can. And now, if I shoot a deer or an elk and I'm 6 miles back, am I taking all the bones with me? Absolutely not, right? But like, there are certain times where maybe I'm able to, and that's great because I do make my own broth and stuff like that. So I try to do that as much as I can, and I try to show her. Granted, she's young, so she's not really fully paying attention, but I try to show her that, you know, this is a big part of my life, and it really means a lot to me to take everything from the animal that gave its life for us to, eat off of it and to provide for my family for the year. So that's a
Hmm.
big thing for me. Um, but I've never walked in someone else's shoes and I don't know what their life looks like. So they might have to drop it off and get it harvested by somebody else. No problem. Um, no issues with that. But for me, it's it's kind of the whole experience,
Yeah.
right? Of, you shoot your animal, you do it yourself, and there's a lot of stuff that you can get from just an animal other than just the meat and just
Hmm.
putting putting some antlers on your wall. So that's what I like to do, but that's just me personally, and yeah.
No, that's awesome, man. I love it. I love your you're diving in both feet. It seems like right out of the gate into your hunting journey, and that's pretty cool. I appreciate that for sure.
I've always been if I'm gonna do something, and it's not always benefited me in my life, but if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna go all the way into it. And that's kind of the approach on hunting that I've had is, um, I, like I shoot my bow every single day. Doesn't matter, rain, snow, whatever. Even if it's 5 arrows, I'm shooting it daily. Um, I'm very involved in what I'm doing. I'm not because and it goes to like, I'm not gonna go argue with somebody who doesn't agree with what I do if I'm, hopping off the couch eating Doritos and not shooting my bow but once a year before the season starts. It makes it hard for me to have a voice
Right.
when I'm trying to explain that this is the way of my life to anti-hunters, and they see a guy who doesn't put in the effort year round. It makes their job easier to shine a negative light on us. So I like to do it year round and be involved in this all the time, whether it's conservation or hunting and all of these different things. That way, when I am talking to one of them, they don't have anything on me. They can't say, "Oh, well, you don't really care about it." It's like, well, yeah, I do, dude, because not only am I doing this year round, when I'm not hunting, I'm filming in the woods, I'm hiking in the woods, I'm picking mushrooms, I'm doing all of this stuff on public lands. It's not just like I'm some lazy guy who gets out there once in a while and shoots at anything and flings arrows at anything. Like, I'm pretty, I like to think that I'm pretty focused on making this a part of my life and, showcasing that and showing new hunters, hey, yeah, you can be as involved as you want, but in my mind, being more involved is not a bad thing.
Right. No, exactly. I couldn't agree more, man. We are getting close to our time. I got a couple questions I wanna throw your way before we do. And the first one pertinent to you and your journey and kind of your transition from getting involved in hunting, going full force into it, into the world of advocacy. This is my own pure curiosity right here. Is there a story behind the title or the handle of your Instagram page, Rags to Riches?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I, growing up, I was definitely a troublemaker, got myself into quite a bit of trouble. I've learned every lesson the hardest way possible, and it ended up where I ended up in prison because some of my decisions, and so um, I struggled a lot in life with drugs and alcohol and things like that. And now I'm completely sober, and so I got arrested, went to prison. I spent 6 years in prison in Oregon, and I got out, and uh, I I needed something to ground me and something to keep me away from my old type of lifestyle. And while I was in prison, my bunkie, or cellmate, whatever you want to call him, had some bow hunting magazines, and was basically telling me all about it and everything, how he hunts and this, that, and the other. And I just kind of started thinking, I'm like, man, that could be something cool for me to do when I get out of here. Like, could be, I've always liked the outdoors, but it was never like my passion, right? So I got out, and my mom was big into photography. She loved the outdoors and just being out in nature and stuff like that. And um, so I started out kind of just hiking, really. I got out, and it was getting into the woods and getting into these places where nobody's at. I'm out there alone. It helped me um, connect, and it helped me kind of realize, it just gave me a spot to get away from all the noise and all the stuff in my life that all the negative in my life that I'd been through and done,
Yeah.
and kind of gave me some quiet and some peace that I needed. And so then like I said, I got my sister got me some archery lessons at that bow shop, and I just watched videos and did that. And I started from the bottom. I didn't come from money. I didn't come from anything like that. And um, so with Rags to Riches is kind of my journey on really finding myself and who I really wanted to be and what I wanted to show my daughter, and to show, anybody else that's struggling. It's like, it doesn't matter where you started or where you come from. It's up to you on where you want to go, right? And I I want to be in the woods. That's where I love to be. It's where I feel, it's where I'm happiest. And then to bring it kind of back to, um, I got out of prison in 2018. We found out almost a year to the day later that my mom had cancer, and then 1 year later she passed away. And me and her were extremely close. She was, my biggest fan, my best friend, and being in the woods was my way of reconnecting with her. And it was, not just hunting, but just being in the woods, photography, finding cool places to sit and connect with her and find kind of a spiritual thing behind all of it, where I'll go to the woods and see see a sunset that's beautiful, or just find something that reminds me of her. And it just kind of it's really helped me find the person that I want to be and want to show my daughter, because um like I said, I kind of grew up in a rough life, and had a rough childhood, and um progressed into a rough road that I went down. And if I can help anybody not go down that road that I did, um, and show them that, hey, man, the outdoors can really do a lot for someone. It can be a safe space, it can be a spiritual place for you, whether it's hunting or whatever it is you're doing out there. It can help you, not go down some of those hard roads. And there's tons of studies that prove it, that, just being in touch with nature, for depression, for anxiety, for all of this stuff that, people might be struggling with, being in nature and being in the outdoors can absolutely boost your mental health. And I don't know if you understand that at all, but like when I go to the woods, that's my way of like just
Yeah.
getting rid of all the stress and all the bullshit that goes on in the world. And when I come back, I am absolutely rejuvenated, and it helps me be the dad that I want to be for my kid.
Yes.
I want to show her that your past does not have to define who you are. And that's really kind of what it's all about. It's deep and it's spiritual and it's a lot, and it's not for a lot of people, and I get that, and that's okay. But it's my way of being at peace, and being in the woods is just it's my way to connect, man. It's my way to get away from the hustle and bustle of the world, and I love it.
Yeah. That's an awesome story, man. Appreciate the testimony. I'm
Yeah.
happy for you. That's good stuff right there.
Appreciate you. And if you have any other questions about that, or about anything else, I'm an absolutely open book about all of it. I think that that's the best way to go about it, because my story and my look isn't the typical outdoorsman. I get a lot of opinions about that, and a lot of people have their views on it. But you know, I'm pretty open to any conversation about it. So if there's anything you want to know about it, or maybe a podcast later on, we can touch on some things if time is of an issue here. But yeah, I'm pretty open about it all.
Well, certainly appreciate that. And man, I feel like this with so many of my guests. I get into these conversations and it's like, dang, I need to start wrapping it up, and I feel like I could do a whole nother episode just about based on where the conversation's gone. So
Yeah, absolutely.
we might have to reconnect again in the near future and do a part two. But I do unfortunately have to start heading for home. But I got two questions for
Yep,
you
no
that I
worries.
ask every first time guest that we have on the show, or almost every guest. First one is simple, but typically some folks have to put some thought into it, and that's a good thing. What is your favorite hunting memory to date?
Oh, oh, man, I would have to say uh, my bear. So I was over east, kind of north of Spokane, and I was deer hunting, and got an opportunity on a big black bear. And I was in a tree stand, and I am up there. I'm 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 alone. I'm up there alone, right? It's like my third year of hunting. I got some buddies that were in the area, but not too close, a couple hours away. And this big old bear came in, man, and I was up in the tree, just shaking, just nervous, and kind of rushed my shot, and made a bad shot on this bear. And fortunately, a buddy of mine, John, they were heading in the direction that I was in to go hunting. So I ended up getting a service, called them, had to track this bear for hours because of my terrible shot. Um, Ended up having to finish it with a pistol. My buddy John was able to help me with that since I can't have a gun. And it was just a wild event. Took hours, and it was a huge learning experience for me to, um, you know, not rush my shots, and not be a hunter that just makes quick shots and doesn't think about it.
Yeah.
So that was a really big one for me there. It's a long story. It's a pretty good story, but that one was to date my best story in the woods with hunting for sure.
Well, I mean, based on how this conversation's gone, I've decided after hunting season, I'm going to follow up with you, and we're going to get a part 2 or something like that, and we can dive into the bear story, because I definitely want to hear the details of that, and probably have maybe some relatable experiences to that based on what you're telling me. So, but that's
absolutely
awesome.
I'd love to.
Last question I got for you. What is on your bucket list? What would you consider once in a lifetime hunts that you would hope to be able to do at some point in your life?
Man, I would probably, I mean, there's kind of the obvious ones of like a moose hunt in Alaska or something like that would be so cool. But really, like a mule deer hunt in Colorado, I think would just be, I think that's probably up there on my bucket list hunt is to go do a mule deer hunt in Colorado where, you're up way high elevation, up in the most beautiful areas. And yeah, I'd have to say probably mule deer in Colorado would be up there with it.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's an incredible one for sure.
Well, yeah, I'd love to make that happen.
Yeah. Well, Eddie, thank you, man, for your time today. I hate that I feel like I'm cutting it short almost, but I hate that we got to wrap it up. But I've enjoyed the conversation, enjoyed getting to know you a little bit, talk some conservation, talk some hunting, hear a little bit about your story. Appreciate you taking the time for our show.
Absolutely, man. No, I appreciate the opportunity to come on here, and hopefully we can get a part 2 going on here. And I got a couple things in the works right now, kind of trying to work on getting my own podcast up and running right now. But, I'm kind of, I can imagine it's a lot, and there's a few things I gotta get done before I can get there. So hopefully here in the future, I'd be able to have you on mine, and that would be a really cool thing to, maybe we can reconnect that way and get a part 2 going on mine or something. That'd be awesome.
I'd be honored, man. Yeah, I'm always down for collaboration in that regard. That'd be fun for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity, man. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Well, for our listeners, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you guys go follow Eddie, Rags to Ridges, and everything that he's got going on over there in his journey. Check him out on social media. Follow this show, subscribe if you haven't already, and with that, I will be back with you guys again next time for another Fall Obsession podcast. Catch you then.